Well, good morning or good afternoon, folks, everybody in lockdown. And my name is George Mienie, and bringing you another show to give you food for thought so that you can run your dealership more effectively and efficiently in this internet era. And today's topic is how to bring trade-ins back to car dealerships. Turning stock in a car dealership has become much more important than ever before, and there's some car dealers who are getting this right and nailing it, and we've got to ask ourselves how are they getting it right, and how are some dealers not getting it right, and some of the things that we can think about is those dealers that are successful price their cars to market, they manage their stock age efficiently, and they track and respond to high demand makes and models in their areas efficiently. However, the internet has disrupted everything. By creative middlemen coming in between the car dealer and the consumer selling their car, vehicle pricing, demand, supply, and a lot of other things have become much more transparent, and car buyers are spending more time online and less time inside the physical dealerships. All this means is that they do their research online, they walk into the dealership, and they're a lot more serious than they ever were before, and they have different avenues to offload their trade-ins. So those multiple channels that consumers have to offload their trade-ins in today's internet world of transparency is causing the car dealership to lose its grip on the trade-in. How do used car dealers then strike the right balance between speed, profitability, and how do you get your trade-in back to your dealership? So fortunately, I'm joined by gentlemen who run really effective dealerships or dealership groups. And in no particular order, I have Dean Lawson, who is from Fury, Honda and Renault, and he's the dealer principal. How's it, Dean? How's it going?
Hi, morning, George. How's it going?
Good. And you? Thank you for joining. I appreciate you being here. And then we have Bobby Petkoff from Mienie Motors. How's it, Bobby? Welcome back.
I'm very well. Thank you for having me again, sir.
Good stuff. And somebody had a comment with me the other day, another dealer, and said to me, is that becoming the George and Bobby show? Which was quite funny, but Bobby's always willing to join. It doesn't matter what time of day and night, he's willing to join and willing to give his insight. Okay, so I think first getting into it, Dean, how is lockdown treating you? What are you getting up to keep yourself sane, first of all? And second of all, how's the Fury Group doing under these conditions?
Look, George, I think, we're all in the same boat. Us as the Fury Group, we're obviously a very dynamic, young team and things like that. And we're obviously putting a hell of a lot of specials together, and we're having these Zoom meetings at head office, and we're talking every second, third day, trying to put things and together, especially these, franchises. I mean, we've got Ford, we've got Renault, we've got Mazdas, we've got Toyotas, we've got Isuzu, Suzuki, Honda. I mean, there's a hell of a lot in the group to keep us going, So I think it's just a situation of, this is a time where you've got to come together and you've got to really think out of the box. You've got to go back to basics. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, I think the basics is right. We've got to kind of hunker down and get all the stuff right that we sometimes let slip. And Bobby, how's Mienie Motors doing? How are you keeping your dealership above water in this time?
So, as my colleague previously said, we're trying to keep all our staff engaged. We've worked out a roster. So it's taking it like a normal working day, wake up early and go back, go and revisit all our leads, write detailed reports, over communicate, everything that's currently happening. Since it's much less, so we've got a lot more time to spend and diving into the details and trying to structure deals, trying to trade in vehicles that we weren't able to maybe a month or two ago. It's trying to keep it a full working day, even though it's from home.
So a lot of over communication to consumers is important because we all know that those finance deals are only valid for 7 days, and the consumer can effectively walk away from the deal at the end when lockdown does lift, because the delivery seals the deal. And they can renege if they want to. So how do you keep them engaged? And what I'm hearing you, Bobby, say is that he over communicates, constantly communicates. And one of the things I spoke to another dealer about the other day was, what about communicating that particular car that they've signed for, got finance for, or are going to collect or you're going to deliver after lockdown lifts, what about over communicating the fact that that is still the best deal in the marketplace by sending them a comparison set, which was quite an interesting idea. I don't know, what do you think about that, Dean? Over communicating to the consumer, being more transparent with the price of the car during this time in relation to other similar cars in the market.
Well, George, like you say, I mean, it depends if you're trying to sell a new car or if you're trying to sell a used car to that person, because like we're saying, you're looking at the trade-in side of it, and trying to sell cars. I think over the net now, and I could be wrong, but I'm just trying to be a realist. That South Africans are also still very scared of doing that stuff. I mean, when you took the likes of Take a Lot and this and that, and clothing came out over the internet and people had to buy online. I mean, people were very scared, I'm going to give my credit card details and this, and am I going to get the stuff? And it takes a bit of time, before people actually believe in that way. But I think going forward, people have got to start doing it more, and the more you can go back to basics and the more you can get the person's trust, I think at the end of the day, I think it would work.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It'll definitely change the way we do things. So let's jump straight into that trading that you're talking about. So what has happened, and maybe we can flip back to Bobby on this one. What has happened in the past, Bobby? What has your dealership experienced? How have you experienced the proverbial loss of the trade-in? Have you lost the trade-in? Are you losing the trade-in? Where do you find yourself as a dealership up to now? Let's put COVID one side. Let's assume we're pre-COVID. What has happened with the trade-in in your world?
So I hope I don't offend any of my colleagues or anybody that's going to go on your podcast and listen. But in my opinion, third-party platforms has taken the trade-in away from the dealer because the dealer gave it to them. So that's my opinion. You gave the third-party platforms the car, the stock on a silver platter. So I employ the attitude, I'm not going to give you my trading. So I will be fast, I'll be aggressive, and I'll give you the best possible price that I can based on the information that I've got in front of me. If I lose it to a third party, then it's not because I try to steal your trading or I try to undercut the price because of a little bit of greed. And let's face it, I mean, we're in the profit-making business, but to try and steal your trading and lose the deal defeats the whole purpose of being in business. So you need to be fair, and you need to be, in my opinion, you need to price the car right the first time, and you have to do it quickly. Then that client has no reason but to take action, either to pull or go to a third party and say, listen, dealership gave me X amount, can you beat that? Because it's very easy to go and counter offer an existing offer. If you allow it to slip away from your dealership, but if you try and keep him there with the best possible price, he's got no reason to go and shop your price against someone else. So, if I lose a trade-in, it will be purely because the deal didn't work for both parties, either or. It won't be because I tried to buy the vehicle for 5 or 10 or 15,000 and cheaper than what it's worth. I mean, if you're a manager, if you're a decision maker of the business that you're running, you should know how to price a car, and in your heart if you've priced it correctly or incorrectly. So losing a trade into a third party, it's difficult to say, but you have to blame yourself. You have to be aggressive and give the right price from the word go. Then you won't lose the car, in my opinion. And I hope I didn't offend anybody on this show.
Well, out of the many dealers that I talk to, I don't think anybody's really going to disagree with you. I think dealers have lost the trade-in for a couple of reasons, and pricing is one of them. Understanding the market dynamics of how a car's retail price fluctuates on a daily basis, and part of the problem, would you agree, Dean, is the backward-looking or rearward-facing way in which we look at vehicle pricing. Are we too rearward facing in looking at how vehicles have been, the prices they've sold for historically, which I think is an important metric, but you don't get that fast enough. So how do you price your vehicle? How do you create that transparency inside your dealership so that you can give that to the consumer and show them, listen here, you're not going to get a better trade-in anywhere else unless somebody really undercuts the market. I mean, how do you think about it, Dean?
George, exactly like Bobby was saying, and I mean, I understand exactly what Bobby's saying. The thing is, they own their own private businesses. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the problem is with the big franchise dealers, you've always got a new car manager and you've got a used car manager. And that mental block is they work for they don't think of the business. They think of themselves. And I think it's always been, coming from a used car background, we've always wanted to try and steal used cars, because that scenario of the new car department always gives away all the money, the discount and everything. And then they go running to the used car manager and then they're wanting more. And then the used car manager won't give more. And you've got this complete fight at the end of the day. And I think they don't look at the bigger picture. They don't look at the picture of trying to, look at business and say, guys, look at the overall picture. We need to get rid of the new car. Let's pay a fair market related price for the used car, so that when we do sell it, you actually sold two cars. You've got your back end, you've got your on-the-road costs, you've got everything. So you've got to look at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And the problem is, in today's time, the guys don't do that. And I think that's where, I fight a hell of a lot with my new and used car managers, because, that's exactly what they try and do. They're trying to make 30, 40 grand out of a used car. And it's not going to happen. Yeah. It's all about turnover.
Yeah.
The thing is, there's a good old saying where I was taught, do you want to sell 10 cars at 1,000 rand each, or do you want to sell one car and make 10 grand? And I mean, when you talk to the guys in that way, the first thing that goes to their mind is, I want to sell one car and make 10 grand. Yeah. They don't look at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Because if you do it the other way around, they think, I've got 10 times, I've got to do work 10 times more, and I've got to do this more, and I've got to do that more, and I'm only going to earn a little bit of commission. They never seem to look at the bigger picture. And that's where I think we are losing to third parties, like Bobby said, which shouldn't happen, because if they can pay that price for the car, and trust me, at the end of the day, they'll end up selling it.
Yeah.
So can we.
Yeah, exactly. So at the end of the day, the car goes through the same channels. It's just he 100%. Who gets his hands on it.
Correct. And I mean, a lot of these third-party places, I mean, they are, how can I say, more of they could be wholesalers, not really retailers. Some of them are wholesalers and retailers. But the thing is, they look at the bigger picture. They look at a scenario of, well, how many cars can I buy today? So if I say, okay, well, I've got 1 million rand today and I'm going to buy 5 cars, I mean, that's 200,000 rand a motor car. And the thing is, the way the way I was taught and things like that, I mean, you spend your 1 million rand. If you pay 300 grand for the one car and you pay 200, that's 500. If you buy 4 or 5 cars, you just take it and you split it amongst all of them and you divide it up. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So some cars might owe you a little bit more. Some cars might owe you a little bit less, but it swings and roundabouts. Yeah. And at the end of the day, instead of trying to make 20, 30,000, make 10 grand on the car, and get your F&I, get your back end, get everything, and just move the iron. You mustn't fall in love with motor cars.
That is so true. Falling in love with motor cars. I mean, how many people have this emotional connection to the motor car, which you shouldn't have. I mean, Bobby, do you have emotional connections to the cars on your floor?
I love each and every sold motor car from my dealership more than the one that's on the dealership.
I love it. I'm in love with all of the sold motor cars. So I suppose all of the stuff you're saying, Dean, goes down to speed of turning those cars on your dealership floor. And how?
Sorry, George. I think it's to interrupt you there. I think it's also a situation where, the thing is, the big franchise dealers, we've got budgets to get to. You know what I'm saying? So that's where it becomes an individual fight instead of a company fight or working together, because you've got your used car manager that's got to give you 500,000 to the bottom line. You've got your new car manager that's got to give you 700,000 to the bottom line. And that's what they fight. They just fight for that. Yeah. They don't look at the bigger picture of, listen, guys, you know what? You've got to make 7. I've got to make 5. Okay, so that's 12. So let's work together and make 1.2 million.
Yeah.
And let's try and put it together. And, there used to be a lot of businesses out there where they used to say, okay, the only way we'll get used car managers and new car managers to work together is you combine them, and whatever each of them make, you split 50-50, and that's their commission.
That's a good way to look at it.
Together.
Yeah, that's a very good way to look at it.
Make them work together.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Because
like
if one's trying to steal and the other one's trying to do the business, you're going to have a war on your hands, so that in a way, then they're working together. Yeah. So that's a good thing.
Have you done that in the Fury Group?
No, I haven't done that in the Fury Group. I did it once before, but unfortunately it didn't really work, because the things, I had so much war on my hands. I mean, you just go back to basics and say, oh, okay, fine, I tried something new. But if it's implemented, it can work.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I suppose change is difficult. People don't want to change. They want to go back to the stuff.
People don't want change.
They don't want change.
Yeah, people don't want change.
And
they don't like it.
They don't like it. Exactly right. So then that kind of like goes into the topic of stock sourcing. So, so if you want to turn metal faster, dealerships are losing the trade-in to third parties, and the reasons they're losing the trade-in is because of trying to steal the trade-in, or undercutting, or not valuing the car correctly, or not pricing it to market. What are the things that dealerships can do to get the trade-in? What are the sourcing opportunities? I mean, we know we've got the trade-in. We know we've got auctions. We know we've got other sources. You guys have got spotters out there. You've got a whole lot of places to go to get a used car. But the best kind of used car, as far as I've learned, is the trade-in, because it is a consumer's car, and it hasn't come from any place that you can't necessarily verify. So how does the dealer get that trade-in back? And for me, it goes down to a couple of things. One, transparency in pricing. We've been talking about that. Make it really transparent for the consumer in terms of where that car that they're trading in fits into the overall retail market right now. Not guessing. But the second thing is actually helping that consumer by maybe going to them. What about inspections? Because a lot of other businesses out there are going to the consumer rather than making the consumer come to the car dealer. Is that one of the Achilles heel of losing this trade-in? Is it a case that the traditional way of doing business as a car dealership is you wait for the trade-in to come through the door rather than going out there to fetch it, going to send somebody to go and have a look at the car? What is your perspective on that, Bobby?
So the motor industry in South Africa is, sorry for a lack of better term, a little bit old school when it comes to that. You've got the majority of business owners or dealership owners are 50s, deep 50s, late 40s, early 60s, and deep 60s. So it's difficult to have a change in mindset at that age. It's not impossible, but it's difficult. I think going out to the consumer, presents itself with brand new challenges and problems. And I'll share, we try and do that at scale. You have potentially a stolen vehicle that you're going to buy. You have cloned vehicles. There's a lot of scary stuff out there. However, we had to make a decision. Are we going to take the risk and reap the reward? And you have to restructure your whole business. I mean, there's new employees that you have to employ. There's training that needs to be done. There's systems that you need to invest in. I mean, our systems cost hundreds of thousands of rands to ensure that we don't make the same mistakes going forward. But I mean, it needs to be a shift in mindset. If the old saying, the early bird catches the worm, I don't believe in, because the worm was already caught by the hungry bird. If you are hungry, you will go out to the worm, get the worm, and fly back to your tree. So I think potentially taking the risk of going out there and buying a stolen vehicle, a cloned vehicle, you have to do that calculation in your mind to obviously determine, is the risk worth the reward. And if you are innovative and go and try out new things and get to the consumer, like you said, get to him quickly, and that potentially there's a couple of cars that you can pick up. But a large portion of our stock also comes from the traditional way of sourcing cars that used to be done 10, 20 years ago. And that is, I mean, I want to have a good standing relationship with a franchise dealer, for example, a VW dealer that only places VW master cars on their floor. And I mean, people buying Amaroks are trading in X5s, MLs. You know, I want to have that relationship where I'm considered a reliable source that always pays on time, that covers me correctly, that doesn't try and steal the car. And you know, majority from our cars come from there. Even though it's old school, we're trying to bring the old school mentality with some new innovative stuff. You know, you constantly need to readjust your recipe. And I think a lot of the dealers have moved away from the relationship side of you know, going to a VW, going to a Renault, and knocking on that door, like they say, you know, knocking on the door and trying to source the cars from there. Again, that creates another set of challenges, because you've got used car managers that are taking bribes and that sort of thing. But there is ways that you can keep them honest as well. You know, go through the DP, have a proper communication channel, you know, where it's transparent. Use a system. There's lots of systems out there that we bid on. And, you know, if you want to get cars and you have the financial capability, you can get cars. You can get more cars than you can get finance, in my opinion. That's my opinion. And you're not getting it not through the third party platforms that have established in South Africa. I really think you can if you push.
I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, I'm not a car dealer, but I spend a lot of time with you guys, and you know, I understand from the outside. And there's you know, unfortunately, AutoTrader, we see the whole market because everybody places their cars with us. So we see all the activity, and that's exactly right. There's no lack of stock. It's just how you get your hands on them that's the problem.
George,
yep.
So sorry, buddy. Sorry to interrupt you. You know, I agree wholeheartedly exactly with what Bobby's saying. And I really think going forward now, after this whole COVID thing, business is going to change a hell of a lot, because exactly like Bobby said, you know, we have to go, the early bird catches the worm, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's going to be a mindset now where you got to get the salesman to get off his bum, you know, and
you can say
ass, get out there. You know, okay, you need to get him off his ass and climb into a car and actually go to the consumer now.
Yeah.
You can't wait for the consumer to come to you, because this whole thing of distance and this and that, once this thing is going to be over with, people are going to be petrified. I still think you're going to have the brave ones that don't care and go and stand in queues and do this and do that, but then you're going to get the conservative ones that are going to say, listen, hang on, you know, why must I go to a dealership, you know, and be around 20, 30 people where, you know what, you, Mr. Salesman, you come to me and it's one-on-one.
Exactly.
You know? And I think that's going to be a huge mind change for the motor industry that's going to happen now, because there's going to be so many people, you know, where the leads are going to go out and it's going to be first come, first serve. The person who gets to that customer the first, that's where I think the customer is going to stay, because that person's gone that extra mile, you know, to actually go to him. And people feel obliged.
Yeah.
You know, you think, yes, this person's done everything to come to me. You know, Shane, let me give him the opportunity, because he's gone that extra mile.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same as I say to my people, you know, it's a completely different story. Always think like the consumer.
Yeah.
Because we're in the motor industry, we understand it. But I say to them, you know, imagine a situation where, you know, you wanted to buy a TV from Hi-Fi Corporation, you know, hypothetically, and all of a sudden the salesman turned and said, what are you interested in over the phone? And no, I'm looking for a 65-inch and it's this and it's that. And the guy says to you, no problem, sir. I'm going to put the thing in my car and I'm going to bring it to you. We're going to plug it into your house and we're going to show you. What is the first thing that you're going to do?
Please
it's going to blow your mind.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to think, wow, this is absolute service. And what are you going to do? You're going to stick with that person. And you're going to end up giving a referral. Like, guys, if you actually anything, any audio or this, you phone this guy, you know, and that's how the word spreads. It's the biggest and the best way of advertising is trust. And if you can get the trust side of customers, not like the olden days, you know, people don't trust salespeople and lawyers because they always think they're going to get ripped off.
Yeah.
You know, and you've got to show them in today's time that, guys, we want to try and change business. You know, this is a guideline. That's all it is. What is it worth? At the end of the day, you guys, as for instance, like AutoTrader and that, you just got to look on the net and see what the other cars more or less are being priced for in that same category, same mileage, same this, same everything.
Yeah.
Where are they priced on the net? And all you got to do, in my opinion, is follow suit. You don't have to be the most expensive. You don't have to be the cheapest. You just follow in line. That's all you are.
Just be fair.
Yes, there's a trade and there's a retail, but it's all market related. If you play open cards with the customer and you show them and you say, listen, and I've done it plenty of times where you sit down with the consumer, and especially like when the guys are trying to, sell a new car, whatever, you take your dealer billing and you open it up and you show them point blank. You say, there's the retail price of the car. That's what I buy the car from the manufacturer. There's the profit in between. How much do you want? You put the ball back in their court.
Yes. Yeah, because I mean, they don't.
So surprised.
They don't mind if you make a profit. The consumers really don't mind if you make a profit.
We're all there to make a profit.
Everybody's there
and
to
most
make a profit.
Most of the time, they play very fair because now they can see it in black and white, and they think, sure, okay, this guy's being very transparent, and they normally they give you, sometimes they give you a ridiculous comeback, and sometimes they actually, but most of the time they're actually very, very fair.
Yeah.
Now, if you do that with used cars, it's exactly the same type of thing.
Yeah.
Even when they come to bring their car as a trade-in, and you can say, listen, this is the guideline. This is what they're selling on AutoTrader for. This is your mileage. So for me to market your vehicle back into the market, that I don't sit with dead stock, that's more or less where I'm going to place your motor car. So what do you feel is a fair price for your car in today's time?
Yeah.
And then you're playing open cards. But this whole COVID thing now, I think is going to be a situation, it's going to be even tougher, because the problem there, people out there are going to be downscaling. So we've got a huge challenge on our hands coming now, where the big boys are going to come now and they want to downscale, trading the MLs and the Land Rovers and the Mercs and the BMs and this. And most of the time, those cars have been bought over 72 months or even longer. The guys only had the car for 2 years. Now you've got this massive shortfall.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you're spot on, and going back to how that ties into what Bobby said, building relationships to get the best cars onto your floor is an important part. I mean, you as a franchised dealer, Dean, when you get a car that you don't want to put on your used car lot, do you pass them on to independent dealers like Bobby?
Look, the thing is, obviously a lot of the times now, because exactly like Bobby was saying, you had a lot of used car managers out there that used to feed their pockets, and I think the groups actually got sick and tired of it because they were losing so much money. So yes, the likes of Bobby and a lot of the independent, guys are losing out to this because of what happened in the past, you see. So everybody puts their vehicles now onto the dealers online, because then it's being, they're trying to make it fair for everybody, to then, listen, if you want to bid, you bid on the car. If you win the car, you get the motor car, But if you don't get a bid on the motor car, I mean, then you've got to still have your relationships with your independent traders and things like that. But it swings and roundabouts, because the thing is, you can't always use them as a guideline, and then you never give them anything, and then you put everything on auctions, and they also end up losing, because at the end of the day, they're just going to say, well, I'm wasting my time with you.
Yeah.
So it's all about trust, and the ones who you can trust. And exactly like Bobby said, I mean, the guys that come along should be introduced to the DPs and things like that, not just the used car managers, and build that relationship. And if you play open cards with them and you say, listen, guys, unfortunately, it's company policy, because there's a lot of, how can I say, franchises out there that it's policy that they have to go onto these platforms.
Yeah. Which I suppose is part of the challenge as well, is trying to use technology to move the metal as fast as possible, which then downplays the relationship with other dealerships. But I like what you said earlier on, and maybe let's pick up on that for a couple of minutes, and that is, coming out of COVID-19 and out of this the situation that we find ourselves, dealers are going to have to change, and I think that change dealers need to start thinking about that change now. What is that change when it comes to the trade-in? How do you build, as Bobby put it, how do you build processes, mechanisms, operational, situations and plans to go to the consumer, like your Samsung story. What do you do in your dealership to change, because it's going to accelerate post COVID-19? And I hadn't thought about it before, but you're right. The consumer's going to want you in their space one-on-one rather than coming to a dealership potentially and interacting with 10, 20 people. So going to fetch the trade-in, going to fetch that good, clean car is going to become even more important. And does COVID-19 mean that traditional dealerships, as we put it earlier on, who are using antiquated methods and not going to the consumer, are they going to lose even more? And are the dealers who are going out to fetch the trade-in going to win? What do you think, Bobby?
So absolutely. I mean, if the only constant in life is change. If you're not going to embrace change and look forward in constantly improving your strategy, your methods, the way you do things, you're going to fall behind. And in my opinion, you should, because as technology adapts, I mean, we're on iPhone, whatever it is, it's doing things faster, quicker, with more features. So as a dealership, you need to, I see myself as an iPhone. I'm not a Nokia 3310. I need to be able to do vast amounts of work within the same time period. So yes, you have to go out, you have to agree with your customer first, and then break the deal down from there. So and going back onto everyday clients coming and say to me, but I've seen on a specific site that these cars sell for this much. I said, okay, really, let's have a look at it. And you put the two cars together and you dissect the transaction. Spec is very important for me. A lot of the time, especially on the BMWs and the stuff where spec is really important. I wanna get that M Sport with a sunroof, with the big wheels, with the xenon lights, and yes, if I have to pay retail, I'll pay retail. If I have to pay more, I'll sometimes pay more. The big thing is, when selling that vehicle, you need to have an airtight, logical and emotional case presenting that car to your customer, to the consumer, because you're going to be the most expensive on the AutoTrader or at a platform. You need to justify that. So if you are the cheapest, you need to justify. If you're going to be the most expensive, you need to justify. I would rather be the most expensive, and with an airtight case, that I'm looking for that specific consumer that wants the low mileage, a highly spec'd vehicle that's 15 or 20,000 rand more than everybody else's car. But when he gets there, he gets his money's worth. So you have to really dig deep and think about each and every trade-in that comes in, and why are you pricing it the way that you are? Why is the customer going to give you that vehicle for that price? A lot of the clients come in and say, but dealers don't pay for extras. Dealers charge you for extras, but they don't pay for spec. And I always, in my mind, say those are the dealers angry at the third-party sites that actually do pay for the extras and do pay for the spec. And those are the dealers pushing away the clients towards the people that are open-minded and don't only see the book value. And it's a catch-22, because there's a repercussion for that. The banks also limit you on certain percentages above retail. I know it differs from dealer to dealer, so you have to be really careful. And that greed factor that we spoke about, has to be one side. You need to think logically, how much money can I make out of this vehicle, with treating first the customer fairly, then my company fairly, go in the middle, give them the price, and if you lose it, then it's lost because
you've been fair.
It wasn't meant to be, or somebody beat you to the deal. And I mean, you can't win them all, but I think if you go with an intention to serve your client, you win most, or you win all that's winnable, unless somebody else has more money in their car, offers them a lot more for the trade-in similar car. But generally you have to change. You have to first agree with your customer and have a logical conversation. A lot of the dealers don't. They say that, well, the book value is 211. I can't pay you 220. I'm like, okay, cheers.
But it's that case that you spoke about. It's that watertight case, because it's not about some sort of list somewhere. It's every car has its own case.
Absolutely. I mean, if you take if we're on the BMW case, if you take a BMW that's been driven by a 50-year-old woman, took the grandkids to school and back, and then it's been driven by the 19-year-old youngster that also drove up and down, but drove in a slightly different way. And you have a look at the condition. The book value cannot be the same for both vehicles, even if it's an identical spec car.
Yeah.
It can't. It's impossible. There's a lot of variables that come into play. So you need to in your mind decide what are those variables and how are you going to treat them.
Spot on, Bobby. And, I like that analogy. You have to have a watertight case for every single vehicle. I mean, I always say that new cars are commodities. One new car is exactly the same as the next new car. But used cars are not commodities because every single used car is different to the next, even if the color and the spec is the same. The mileage is different. The way the car's been treated is different. And you've got a different case to build on that particular car. So it's not a sausage machine. So unfortunately, gentlemen, I think we're out of time. I think there's one or two more topics I wanted to cover, but I'm glad we got talking about one because we've got some more to talk about in the coming weeks, especially if lockdown is extended. So I suppose any final thoughts? I mean, what do you guys think? How is the automotive industry and the automotive economy going to? What is your perspective? What is it going to be looking like after lockdown? Dean, what do you think we're going to look like?
To be honest with you, it's so difficult to say. I think at the moment now, George, I mean, I think it's a situation everybody just wants to get back to work and plan from there going forward and to see what they can do. We've all got these bright ideas of what we're going to do, but we've got to put them into play. And the only way we're going to be able to put it into place to actually get back there first and then say, right, this is what we've got to do. But I think it's going to take a long time for this whole thing to turn around.
I think that's spot on. Bobby, what do you think is going to happen after lockdown? What's the automotive industry going to look like?
I'm excited, Mr. George. I can't wait to get back there. I'm excited because I love the process. I love the situation coming to me and taking a look at. You have to play it day by day, literally hour by hour, because by 9 o'clock I would know something about how the industries relax or rather changed since lockdown and after lockdown. Then by 12 o'clock I would have heard something else. So I'm not saying it's going to be firing on all cylinders from day one, but I don't think the pre-owned market will be affected like too negatively too quickly. I think it will take a couple of months to get back to a normal type of sales scenario, but I'm not scared. I'm confident that the dealerships that provide service and that have got a good reputation will survive this, and then the guys that are in there for the quick buck will obviously take a bit of a beating, and possibly some of them will close down, but the guys that come from a place of serving will be okay. I think that's what I want to wish for each other here.
I agree with you, Bobby. And coming from the franchise side, I think used cars and your workshops are going to be your two main, for me in my business, is going to be your two main important things in dealerships and franchise dealerships. That's going to keep our heads above water. It's definitely not going to be new cars, because there's going to be too much competition out there, and they're just going to throw as much money as possible, towards the cars just to move the iron, which I understand it. I respect that, but it's the used car side that with a lot of people can't maybe afford and downscaling, they're still going to buy a used car. You're not going to downscale and buy a new car.
Yeah, that's so true. So that's it for today, gentlemen. I mean, my perspective on the market is that we're going to have a bigger swing to used cars come the end of lockdown. That's going to take a couple of months, as Bobby pointed out. Dean's very positive that a similar thing's going to happen. From his group's point of view, franchise dealers are going to rely more on the used car departments than they ever have. I mean, we saw some of this happen in 2008, 2009. From an AutoTrader point of view, we saw a swing to used. So used, if you run your dealership efficiently and if you do the things that we've been talking about, there's no reason why you shouldn't lose. you should win in this market. So that's it for today, and I thank Bobby Petkoff from Mitmac Motors. Thank you for joining again, Bobby, and Dean Lawson from Fury Group that has Honda and Renault. That's been fascinating. I've enjoyed it, and I hope you guys have. And keep yourself safe. Don't do anything that can get you this virus. Good stuff.
Thanks, George.
I'm George Mienie. See you next time.